Welcome back to Search Marketing Academy. Today's guest is Jon Payne, the director of Noisy Little Monkey, and one of my favorite SEOs and marketers and people in general. Jon, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you here.
Ashwin, I'm so glad to be here and finally see you face to face. It's great. Thank you for having me.
Jon, tell us a little bit about yourself, the work that you do, what you're like in your spare time.
I am a 53-year-old, very handsome old white man. For those of you who are listening rather than watching, those of you who are watching can obviously see that. And I, in my work life, with my wife, I run an agency called Noisy Little Monkey. And in my personal life, I feel like I also run an agency called Noisy Little Monkey a lot of the time in that. But just recently, one of the highlights of the last 3 or 4 years was I sing in a choir, and which is a terrible thing. I never wanted to be one of those people who sang in a choir. But in Bristol, there's this choir called the Lush Choir, and Lush is a Bristol expression for that's really nice. Gert being great, lush being delicious. So it's the Lush Choir, and we went to Rome to sing in a choir festival. And although it's illegal to busk in Rome, we busked around Rome. We're not collecting money, just for the joy of singing. And we were singing anti-fascist folk songs outside of police stations in a country where they've voted in a very nearly fascist prime minister. So we got shut down by the police, which was great. A load of old pensioners, and I'm about the youngest person in it, getting told off by the Italian police while singing at the tops of our voice. That was great.
And let's hope they don't bar you from the country. I'm sure you'll want to go back at some point.
I love Italy. So yeah, they were very kind to us, and we were very kind to them when they moved us on. So yeah, there was no fisticuffs.
While I have you, let's dive into some of these topics. So I know that Noisy Little Monkey, one of the things that you told me about recently that I latched onto was that you are focusing more now on everything that happens post organic or paid click, right? And I know that you have a very specific niche that you're going into with HubSpot as well. So before we get into what you're doing and how you're doing it, why did you decide to make this your new priority?
Good question. The reason we went that route was one of the things with SEO, and we did social media as well for many years. And one of the things, my background is sales, and so I always wanted to be able to attribute activity that people were doing in marketing to revenue. And with SEO and PPC, it was easy, and SEO particularly, it's easier with PPC, but with SEO, we don't do any pay-per-click at Noisy Little Monkey. It was difficult to attribute revenue to that traffic that had come from Google search or Bing search or Yandex or whatever. And so we kind of fell into using HubSpot to record that, because that was the first place I could tie marketing data really accurately for small businesses to revenue data. Obviously with bigger companies you might be able to do it with Optmyzr and stuff like that, but this was the first time I've been able to do it. And for B2B, not for, like, if you're selling socks and you're selling t-shirts and stuff like that online, that's easy. But most of our clients are in the manufacturing or in are they tech startups, or they're a consultancy or a consultancy-led business, accountancy, solicitors, lawyers. And so that it's difficult to keep that golden thread of data running from, oh, this person arrived on this page from this source at this original time, and they came back 2 or 3 times, maybe via email, maybe they follow us on social, blah, 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 blah. And then eventually they paid a contract for £500,000, and therefore you can attribute that back to the sources that influenced that. And that's why, so we always did SEO and social in that way. We would say to people, even when we couldn't measure it, look, there is no point, we turn business away, there's no point in us working for you if your website is so patently not ready to receive visitors. You only get one chance to make that first impression. We're not going to rebuild your website. That's not, we're not super interested in building websites, but we would suggest here's some good people who can rebuild your website. Come back to us in 6 months when you've gone through that process. We'll talk to them during that process to make sure that the structure's right and all of that kind of stuff, and that you've got a website that not only attracts people but converts them into sales leads or revenue if you're able to sell online. But yeah, if people didn't have a website that was ready, we would turn them away. So we ended up doing a little bit of web stuff. And then when we found HubSpot and realized that we could do the attribution as well for B2B businesses who had a long sales cycle or big ticket items that people don't necessarily buy so readily online, we were able to then move to, okay, well, we can do automation. Where my background is sales, we were able to move past the kind of out of the box automation and that really awful sort of like follow-up emails you get from people where it's really either way too cheesy and over friendly, and it's been personalized to a ridiculous degree, and it just feels incredibly creepy that this person is speaking to you like they're your best friend. And then you've got the other extreme, which is you have people who, you know, you'll interact with the business and then you get something that's not personalized to you at all, it's not contextualized to what you're looking at, and it's really distant and doesn't really resonate at all. But thankfully, with my sales background, I'm able to pull out of the salespeople's heads what's worked for them in the past, and then hopefully give them something for company-wide that's kind of personalized to the person who's inquired or to the person who's we're actually doing a bit of outreach to, but without being that creepy, hey, you didn't open my last email, I hope we haven't fallen out kind of BS that you see so many times. So yeah, my background led us to it, and initially just being able to prove our worth, I suppose, and the work that we were doing to our clients. And also, one of our things is to try and make the people we work for famous in the business, and if possible, get them to move on and go to a better job if they don't like where they are, or to get promoted, because you know, otherwise we're just helping people buy more crap they don't need, right? We try not to do that. We try not to have clients that do that, but we're just trying. Everybody's got enough stuff, so let's try and make people happy. And if we can make people happy in their job by working with us and make them successful, then that's great. And if one of the ways we can prove they're successful is to go, they hired this agency, we cost them this much, but we drove this much in revenue, and here's the report. So yeah, that's what got us into it.
It was something that you wrote in the email that you sent me the first time as well. Cutting through the bullshit that is so rampant everywhere. It's almost like so many people that I speak to just don't have the patience for it anymore. I get, probably 20, 25 cold emails a day. All but one or two will be generic and passive aggressive almost. Oh, I guess you didn't want to reply to my email. No, I fucking did not. That's why I didn't reply to your email. But then I'll have this one that's really thoughtful, like, hey, you posted about this. Is this also a goal for you based on what you said? And it's like, okay, so you're actually making the effort to learn about me. Let's have a conversation.
I don't know what it is. There must be something on LinkedIn or on TikTok that says be passive aggressive in your cold marketing emails and send 7 of them or whatever it is. That's the current thing, isn't it?
I think it's there everywhere, like sales, marketing disciplines, whatever you want to look at. There's always this group of people that proposes the wrong approach and just complete crap. And everybody who starts working in the industry or switches roles or starts working in a new part of the revenue stream, they just like gravitate towards these people because they're the most amplified, right? So bullshit takes, and then they all get these little engagement pods going, and they boost each other's content, and then we never get to see the stuff from people who actually make sense. But that's why I love newsletters, podcasts, things like that, where I can curate what shows up in my inbox. And then I've been so liberal with my spam button this past 6 to 12 months. I am just ruthless. If you don't have anything good to say, you're just going straight in. Side note, every single person that I've spoken to on this podcast did not start in marketing, or at least did not start in search marketing. I think you kind of need that exposure outside of the search bubble to really understand how people buy things, how people look for things, what motivates them.
Agree. I listened to I listened to some of Crystal's. I love Crystal. Actually, love is too weak. I adore that woman. She's incredible, and just fills the room and the people around her with energy. We're lucky to have her in our sector. I listened to Jamar as well that you had on. He's brilliant. I have had to listen to his podcast twice because I didn't have a chance to make notes the first time, and I'm like that. Oh, this guy is just giving gold all the time. So that's what the rest of us seem to like about your podcast as well, is that you're finding these nice people and me for some reason, but you're finding these lovely people who and clever people who are willing to share and have an honesty and transparency about them that is like we were talking before we started recording about Brighton SEO and all of that kind of stuff, and places like Brighton SEO are like these beacons of light in the darkness and the swirling mists of misinformation that's being spread to lots of people on LinkedIn, and it's fine that we can see it's BS. And part of the reason Noisy Little Monkey exists is it shouldn't just be people like us who can see that it's BS. It should be everybody to be able to see that. But the majority of people, their common sense is they tweak when they hear this. Oh, you should do X or you should do Y, and obviously X and Y is some sort of either spammy thing or these passive aggressive emails that you were talking about receiving and people sending, or doing something really mundane and run of the mill on PPC when other people are doing all of this crazy cool automated stuff, and they get persuaded by people even though their common sense tells them this doesn't feel right. We had a call yesterday because we still do SEO. We love doing SEO. I had a call yesterday with a big startup in the USA, and the founder said at the end of it, "Hang on, I've been doing SEO for 2 years with an organisation already, spending a good chunk of money." She didn't say that, but that was my interpretation. And she said, why are all of our sitemaps wrong? Even I know that's right. Why are they wrong? Why are they sending them to error pages? Why have we got all of these pages that shouldn't exist? There were hundreds of things wrong. And it's just because people hope that they're putting their trust in people. And one of the things that we wanted to do at Noisy Little Monkey, and we continue to do, is make sure that if we can debunk some of that bullshit that's out there for just normal human beings who run businesses who go, "Oh, I'm not computer literate," and all of that kind of stuff. That's fair enough. But if we can debunk it so they can go, right, if I have any qualms about what this marketing person is telling me, I'm going to go and test it against some reputable sources that I've learned from Noisy Little Monkey. Then we're doing our job. We're saving, because we set up because I found someone who couldn't pay his mortgage because he'd been so badly ripped off by an SEO company. He invested all this money, his redundancy money, he'd lost his job. This company had built him a website, an SEO company. It was just trash, and it was like his whole life savings are in this thing. Awful. He'd spent £60,000 on it. I rebuilt it in WordPress in a weekend and didn't charge him because it was just like, okay, you've got the content, let's put it in something that Google can find, and then let's hope that he never recovered. But he made enough money for beer and chips for a bit. If people can listen to this podcast, if people can listen to Crystal, listen to people like you and me, then hopefully normal human beings working in marketing or running their own businesses can make better decisions about choosing who to partner with or which people to hire.
I see it all the time in PPC, and it's almost always very similar, right? So one of the big things is always agencies owning the ad accounts rather than the business or the brand. That's a big one. And then another one is feeding clients false expectations. If you spend twice as much, you'll get twice as many conversions, which it never works out that way. Unless you're already at the bottom of your impression share. But it's just it's making life harder for themselves, but it's also making life harder for all of us who are trying to do right by people. And then they come in and into a discussion with us with these expectations that you then have to break down before you can do the actual work, and that causes so much frustration, and distracts us from just getting the work done, which is what we really want to do.
That's the world we live in now, and at least we're saving some people from continuing to invest their money in terrible, terrible organizations.
On the subject of doing the work, the people who listen to this podcast are primarily paid media and paid search people, but they work with brands that also do SEO. In many situations, they work with brands that have some kind of post-click nurturing or post-click automation, some sales involvement, right? And they need to understand how these things work. So what is the actual work? What are some of the things that you're doing at Noisy Little Monkey to help with automation in HubSpot and make sure that the post-click experience is really, really good? Because I want people listening here to understand what a good setup looks like so that they can go and advocate for that with their clients.
So there's probably two extremes, I guess. Not extremes, but there's kind of like the just doing the basics a little bit better. Right over to let's do some reasonably sophisticated stuff, and let's maybe even involve some machine learning to really find some return on investment. So starting out with the more basic ideas. We're all familiar with you, and this is for a B2B sector. We're all familiar with you click an ad, or you click a search result, or you click something on LinkedIn or whatever, and you go to the website, and it. We have people who'll give away useful downloads. Great, absolutely fabulous, makes the world better in their sector. Some of those are probably so valuable that it's worth someone exchanging an email address for, which is what we're talking about, right? So, okay, so let's gate that behind a simple form, first name, last name, email address, and then we'll send you the download. So many people stop when they've sent the download. And what you've got is permission from someone to send them more things, particularly if you're in the UK or Europe. At the point that you're sending them that first thing, if you're doing your job correctly, you're following the General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, so you're asking them for permission to send them something. So at the point you've got that, that's quite a big hurdle. So what we often find is people are just doing that one thing, and we'll say, right, well, if they've downloaded, let's say, they've downloaded a guide to trying to use an example that wasn't in one of the workshops I ran this morning, and that's difficult because they were both for real companies. So you've downloaded a guide to buying office audio products, right? So you've got like, what microphones do I need for podcasts, and what camera is really good for doing stuff like this. Obviously mine's not, but so you've downloaded that guide to cool cameras and cool mics for small and medium-sized businesses. If you've done that, then probably there's other things that a good organisation would try and help you out with if they were consultative, and this works best for that. So rather than just sending them that guide to cameras and mics, you might send them a couple of days later. Hey, if you're thinking of buying a camera and a microphone, here's our pick of the best lights. Now, your organisation that's sending them out might not sell lights, but the context that your prospect is looking in, your buyer, they are probably looking for lights. So you may not sell them, but why not tell them how to choose the best lights? You might follow up later on with how to do effective but affordable soundproofing. So I'm sat here and I've got a couple of quilts in front of me on the other side of this screen because I'm in a glass box and it's really echoey. That's what people need to know, that kind of stuff. So, and you might do that 4 or 5 times, and each time you send that email, maybe it's got a little link in it from Calendly or from HubSpot or from something that interacts with your diary that says, book a 15-minute conversation about your audio-visual needs. I can help you solve some problems. Sending 5 or 6 emails like that, the law of diminishing returns begins to apply after 6 or so emails. But sending 5 or so helpful emails like that makes it much more likely in that, let's say their decision-making path is 2 weeks. It takes them 2 weeks to decide, or 2 months. Well, you just space those emails out in the relevant, for the relevant distance between initial contact and typical sale close. You spread those out using timing and all of that kind of stuff. And we use HubSpot, but you can use Magento, you can use MailChimp, you can use Moosend. I found this morning. That's the first one I've started to see that. But there's lots of different ones. You space those out. You send them stuff that's relevant, but not about what you're trying to sell. And what will happen is they're much more likely to Google you a second time or to click a link in one of those emails when they do come to consider the purchase a bit more. When they do come to start trying to find a supplier to deliver that stuff, you'll be seen as one of the trusted organisations. And so beyond simply just doing that, we make sure that those emails are personalised from someone in the organisation who has expertise in that particular area. And if the person books a meeting or phones up, those emails automatically stop. And the relationship begins, so you don't get then the buyer being chased by these emails that make no sense. So that's kind of the simple way, and that we see that will often help people close 10 to 20% more business from the leads they're already getting, right? So that's park SEO, park conversion rate optimization. You're already getting leads. Let's get more revenue from those leads. The other end is then saying, okay, well, if you've got all of that going on, maybe we can say, well, if you've got enough throughput on your website, you could say, well, people who look at these 5 pages and check out or put in an inquiry, they tend to be a client that spends £100,000 or £2,000, whatever. Okay, so we can learn from that data that we've acquired that says people who look at these 5 pages, then download this guide and then receive these 4 emails, if they close, they tend to spend £1,000, £2,000, whatever. They tend to be a great client. Okay, why don't we then put those people in a bucket and retarget them, the ones who aren't closing? or remarket to them. I don't quite know what the proper term is in your PPC world, but let's hit them with some ads during that process. Maybe they're display ads, maybe we're getting at the top of search for slightly less related searches, but we can feed those things back to each other. We can also say, if people look at the first 5 pages, or these first 5 pages in our list of pages that we know are really good for type of customer A, who always spends a reasonable sum of money, well, if we know they always look at those, anybody who looks at those 5 pages, let's start to change the website and use smart content to start to move them more smoothly towards the typical conversion path, rather than having it the same conversion path for everybody. You can start to customize it. So there's automation behind the scenes. You can begin to then feed that back into the website. You can begin to feed that back into your customer acquisition or your visitor acquisition. And then sort of the tail end of all of that is at the bottom of the typical sales funnel. Will work with salespeople and go, right, this lead isn't one that you would normally pick up from a networking thing or from a referral or whatever. This is a lead that has come to the website, they've downloaded a guide, we've sent them 3 or 4 more guides, and now they've said they're interested in a call. Don't phone them up and try and close them. Phone them up and discuss their problems and their issues. And so we train the sales team, and we give them some automation and some documentation that supports that. And that's the work we do most often, is so we work on strategies. If people don't have a strategy for using automation, we'll provide them with a strategy. And that normally actually involves quite a big digital marketing strategy, and we'll be talking to other agencies. We work with a lot of PPC agencies and web design agencies and other SEOs to get this stuff done. We'll help them align their business process with the technology that they want to deploy, and often they haven't seen all of the savings they can make, how they can, instead of having 5 people in marketing do this one particular job, they could have 3 of those people do that job, and they could redeploy 2 of them to do something that would drive more traffic or that would convert more leads. So we can show them how the technology will make savings and improve their process. And then finally, we deploy the technology following best practice, but for their particular business. And that's where we eventually are able to go see all of the results that you get, delighted customer. But yeah, the automation, the simple stuff is anybody can do it, and anybody can do it with really inexpensive tools. And that's just like, get people downloading stuff. And it's old school. I mean, it's like, this has been going on forever, but people still do it, and just people fail to follow up. People fail to follow up in a way that's creative, imaginative, and respectful and contextual. Oh, I should write that down. If you can do that, you'll close more biz.
It's a beautiful story from start to finish. And I love especially that part at the end. Be respectful about it, right? You don't want to bait and switch people and say, book a call with me and I'll help you fix your problems, but you just try to get money out of them, right? So the more you help people, the more they'll help you back. Law of reciprocity.
Yeah, exactly. And know that actually a lot of those people who are downloading those guides don't want to buy anything today, will never buy from you. They might want to just go and do it a different way. But actually, if you're providing them with help, maybe they'll recommend you to a friend. But you just got to know that it's sales, right? And it's one of the things we have to train salespeople on a lot, is get out early if it sounds like it's crap. It's a waste of your time and you're only pissing them off. Like, just help them and go. Don't try and flog them stuff.
There's one other thing I wanted to talk about. You are the only person I know who woke up one day and said, I want the word gaggle to follow me around the internet. I know it's a little meetup thing, but how did it begin, and what's the whole idea behind it?
This is going to sound ridiculous because you're in a far bigger country than I am, but we used to have to drive quite a long way to Brighton SEO, and the trains are terrible from Bristol, and that's where I wanted to train my team, is because that's where all the big speakers came. And I thought, well, it's not the end of the world, and we send people, and we love the conference, but people don't want to spend that much time in a car often, or on a train going across the fat bit of Britain at the bottom. So I was thinking, well, how can I train my team? And at the time, Kelvin hadn't decided to do remote to record all the talks and make it so you could watch them. So I figured what I could do is get them trained by the best people in the world, including our friend Crystal Carter, get them trained by the best people in the world by inviting them and paying their travel expenses and their childcare, because it's not Brighton SEO. They're not going to get millions of leads from it or massive exposure, but I could get them to train my team in Bristol. And the way I could get them to do that is say, I will bring 200 or so marketers and business owners and get them along as well. So you train 200 people, you might get some leads, you will get some exposure. I didn't realize they would get some exposure, but it's turned into something that is quite well respected, which I'm amazed by and delighted by. But yeah, so it started out as, how can I train my team for free? Oh, right, well, I can pay their expenses and put them in front of a room full of 200 people who want to listen. And also it works with our ethos, is we want to share our knowledge. So why, if we're getting Crystal Carter to come and talk to my team, let's use Crystal Carter again because she's stuck in my head. If we're getting her to come and talk to the team, why wouldn't we get as 200 of our mates from Bristol to come and listen, or from the Southwest? So actually people come from London now, we've had people come from the USA to come along to this thing. And it's more expensive than Brighton SEO, it's smaller, it's only half a day, but we just thought, it's a way of getting the best speakers to come and train people in the Southwest, rather than somewhere where it's a little bit easier for the rest of the country to get to. There are other conferences around that are similar, and what I was really delighted by is a guy called Dave Briggs from a place in Britain called Plymouth, which is even more southwest than we are, came along to Digital Gaggle, and he was like, that, John, I'm going to do one of these. And I was like, okay, thinking, you're a lunatic. Why would you want to run an event? They're quite difficult. Anyway, he started one in Plymouth and Exeter. It runs twice a year. It's bigger than Digital Gaggle, because down even further in the Southwest, there's even more businesses and marketers who want to learn stuff but can't. Getting to Bristol's a pain in the bum, let alone getting to Brighton. So yeah, I'm really thrilled by it. We have great speakers who love to come along. It's great. I'm so delighted that it turned into what it turned into. And it's certainly not my doing. I had the initial idea. Lots of people have helped me execute it. Natasha Baldwin, our creative director, ex-creative director, Claire Dibben, our marketing manager for many years. They're really the architects of what it became. I'm really good at ideas and doing this, just letting my mouth run. I'm so lucky to have people in my life who can execute ideas and put polish on them. And Natasha and Claire and Katie, who is our head of sales and marketing now, who hosts it, really, they're the people who sort of bring the fire. I just once went, yeah, let's call it Digital Gaggle, because that's a stupid name and people will remember it. Let's be clear, we're not living in terrible poverty and all of that kind of stuff down here, but it's a difficult place to get to, Brighton, from way over in the Southwest.
It almost feels like local SEO on steroids, you know? The more you neglect a market, the bigger the demand gets. Your big conference organizers are never going to go to a small town in, the southwest corner of England, sorry. Because there's just, at least they think there's no money there.
Well, they did for a while after we'd started Digital Gaggle, because they thought there must be money in it, and then they realised we just did it to share good information, and it just about pays for itself, and so there are no big ones that come back anymore.
Tell me a little bit about how people can find you. How do they get help from Noisy Little Monkey if they want to do some of the stuff that you spoke about today?
You can find me, I'm mostly on Twitter, if I'm anywhere, and that's at Mr. Jon Payne, Mr. being MR, John being Jon, so MrJonPayne, Mr. Jon Payne. And just search for Noisy Little Monkey. There's doubtful one in the country or town where you're listening, so we're probably going to come up number one. If you want any help with HubSpot or automation and stuff like that, those are the two best places to get hold of us. And mate, it's been such a pleasure spending this half hour with you. I really appreciate it. I've just feel quite blessed to be in your presence.
That's a bit of a stretch over there. You're the first person who told me that they loved the guests on the show so much that they took notes. That means a lot to me.
Jamar was great. I might have to fly out to wherever that man is and just take him out for dinner and go, give me all of the stuff. Tell me all of the things.
All right, John. Take it easy, and thanks for sharing your time with me.
Oh, man, it was a pleasure. Thanks so much.